Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I guess you're wondering what has happened, and more importantly, does it involve the RD? Fortunately, no. This is purely an elective procedure I had done, and the RD is intact. No one has fallen off of it. What I thought I'd do in this video is a bit of fettling and also figures about how much it costs to do this rebuild. So they're not exact numbers, because living here I've had stuff sent in from the UK, I've brought stuff in France, some bits I already had that I included in the figures for the sake of completeness, but just as a generalisation of what the rebuild has cost. So using the Yambits UK website, I brought stuff from them, I brought stuff from Wemoto, all over, but it's kind of the same. We were looking at a full gasket set, a full oil seal set, a pair of conrods with little end and big end bearings, a complete set of crankshaft bearings, the crankshaft nut and little O-ring oil seal, a pair of pistons and with rings, labyrinth seal, 3-bond sealant, and some ad hoc carburetor gaskets. Now that little lot came to £368, there or thereabouts. Doesn't include postage, doesn't include the various hurdles I've had to jump through on imports and tax and stuff, but that's roughly it. And then for the main body of the work, the rebore was €240. The crank rebuild was €180, bearing in mind I supplied all of the bearings and everything. And the replacement vape plate was €152. So roughly that's a figure of around £870 for the complete rebuild. It is what it is, isn't it, really? I could have made some savings if I hadn't have cocked up taking off the vape. That would have saved me €150. And if I had taken the cylinders for a rebore before jumping in and buying oversized pistons, apparently a honing would have fixed the cylinders and I could have got away with maybe just one new standard size piston. So there we are. So that's basically what it's cost so far. What I'm going to do now is look at the timing. So look at where the timing is sitting at the moment and where it needs to be and what the differences are. And the other thing I need to do is the oil pump. I need to check that it is pumping out the correct amount of oil, it's pumping it out evenly to both carburetors, and that's it really. Then I think we're almost ready to go. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to ride, well, doctor says 6 weeks. I don't really see that as a target. I kind of see that as well, an opportunity to do better. So maybe in another 10 days we'll actually get it out on the road. Anyway, let's crack on with the fettling. So if you remember, I set up the timing with the firing point midway across the sensor. So what I want to do now is check the actual firing point. You can see a little bit of white paint there on the flywheel. So using a strobe light, I'm going to see exactly where it flashes, and that will indicate where the firing point is, and if I have to physically move the flywheel so that it fires in the right position. So it would be from that point there in the centre, just a little bit round to that point there. So you'll see on the opening few seconds here where the white mark on the flywheel is being picked up by the strobe light. Sorry, it's very difficult to film this, but you'll see that the white mark is just as it approaches the sensor, or on the sensor. So I've got to physically move the flywheel back. So there we are, 2 mil before top dead center. And that's where we set it the other day. and the strobe light was indicating that it needed to be here rather than there, and the difference between those two is about 0.25. So we're a quarter of a millimetre out. So what I'm going to do is set the piston to 2 millimetres before top dead centre, take off this wheel and just move it to the beginning of the sensor pickup, and then use the strobe light again. And so I think that's it. The timing is set and the clutch cover is on. Everything has fitted nicely around the vape system. No problems at all. Clutch is working, and I can turn my attention now to the oil pump. Well, that's been 4 months since the initial disaster, and since I put everything away when I stripped it down. Pleased I put everything in plastic bags and kept them separate, because it's made reassembling and much easier. So I'm just threading through now the supply tube from the oil tank. I have had the oil tank off actually and given it a good clean, because I had a little leak somewhere, and had to use a little bit of heat just to soften the end of the oil feed pipe, just so that it would go onto the pump without too much of a problem. Now just looking at the settings and trying to work out how to set up the pump. Now it appears that I don't have the same oil pump as described in the Haynes manual. I don't have the wheel, the white wheel on the primer, if you like, on the opposite side to the pump. So, having read through the instructions, the only thing I can think of is to have the engine on tick over, and just to see the pump moving, and use a feeler gauge to see what that gap is. Now, unfortunately, I can't find my metric feeler gauges, so I'm having to use the old-fashioned imperial type, and it's coming out about 20 thou, and it needs to be 12. So does that mean I need another spacer or need to take one out? Not sure. Well, I fitted the oil supply lines to each carburettor and chased out the air bubbles. So it's just a question of shimming now. I've taken off this nut here and this plate here, and beneath it are 4 shims. I'm not sure if that's going to focus, but there you go. So I've taken out one of these shims to see if I can get that gap between the 8 and 12 thou that the Haynes manual suggests. So I'm obviously going to go for 10. The problem that I have is that just by turning the engine over with a kickstart, doesn't really take up this sort of slack in the pump. So I'm going to have to get the engine running on tick over and then pop this feeler gauge in there to see if I'm getting a consistent 10 thou gap. If I haven't, I'll just carry on playing around with these shims, putting one in, taking one out. They all appear to be the same size. So these shims are coming in at 10 thou. Well, showing here 9.5. So the situation was that there appeared to be no movement at all at idle. When I slackened off the nut, I did get some movement. So that left me with a quandary that I can't leave that nut not tightened down sufficiently. So I'm going to put the spacer back in and tighten that nut down to where I'm comfortable and see if that still gives me 10th thou of movement. So what we've got is 15th thou of movement when the engine's idling between there, which is not much. I mean, it's supposed to be 12 at the max. The only way to do it is get a 5 thou shim, as the others are all 10s. I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather have it put in a little bit too much oil than too little. As you can see, I've put the tank back on and it's all ready to go now. I'm just waiting for my foot to be strong enough to be able to use the brake pedal and obviously hold the weight of the bike. So the timing is set. We've done it with a strobe light, so we identified exactly where the electronic system fires and then moved the mechanical element of it back to that same position. So I'm happy with that. The oil pump, now originally that was about 20 thou and it should have been 12, and simply by tightening the locking nut at the top we managed to reduce that down to 15. Shall I tighten it a bit more or mess about with some spacers if I can find some more shims? I don't know. Really appreciate your comments on that. And I think that kind of wraps it up for the moment. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe. I'm over 900, about 920 something now. If I get to 1,000, people start to take notice of me, helps the algorithm and all of that, and that would be really, really useful. Where we go from now, I'm not quite sure. Obviously there's going to be some videos on getting this running and setting up the carburetors, and I've got some new equipment, so hopefully we can get some decent exhaust sounds now when we're out and about. It's coming into riding season, so there'll be some more rides. There'll be some more on the green Kawasaki 650 RS that's currently in England, which will be coming over to France sometime in the summer. The Aprilia video didn't do as well as I thought it would, so I don't know where to go from now. So should I look to buy another old-timey stroker like this and do it up, maybe a Suzuki TS or a PE or whatever comes available locally? I do have a Fizzy that needs working on. Let me know if you'd like to see videos on that. But for the moment, that's it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.